The early game of Terraria can feel relatively slow. There's tons of options to be able to go towards, but you might not know where to start. Obviously, the underground is a good option, but the other biomes, while being more dangerous, also have better items. So, what are you supposed to do? Well, in this video I decided that I'm going to try and explain as much as I can about the early game before any bosses, to give new players an idea on where they might want to go and how they want to prep for the upcoming challenges ahead. But if we're going to start anywhere, we're probably going to start with the early game mining and the standard underground area. So when it comes to the early game, mining is usually your best bet in order to get an edge against enemies at the start. Now, mining can come in many forms, but the most common thing you're going to be mining is ore. Now, each world generates with a certain type of ore. Now, there are multiple alternatives to said ore that were added in 1.2 to give worlds a different variety, as things change depending on what you have. Like certain magic weapons can be made with only certain ores and vice versa. But in the early game, it's pretty much just the alternate ores are better than the standard ones. So if you get better alternates, then all good job. Of course, that's all RNG, so you never know that's going to pop up. Now, for the base ores, you have copper, iron, silver, and gold. For the alternatives, you have tin, lead, tungsten, and platinum. Now, all of these ores can be taken straight to a standard furnace and be smelted into bars. These bars then can be taken to an iron or lead anvil and made into all kinds of items. And once again, if it has material in the name, just take it to the guide and he'll tell you all about it. So it's always a good idea if you find a new material to ask him what you want to make, and you can find a whole list on everything in the game that is including that item. Now, while mining, you might realize that it goes a bit slow. Without a powerful pickaxe, things take a long time. And if you're trying to get weapons or armor, you don't want to be spending all those bars on new pickaxes. So, what should I do in order to speed things up? First of all, potions. Mining potions and spelunker potions are perfect for what you're trying to do. Mining potions give a 10-minute 25% buff to your mining speed. Now, when you look at a pickaxe, it has pickaxe power and the use speed or whatever speed that's not important. The mining speed is a whole hidden thing. It's not told to you directly, but in all honesty, that whole thing doesn't really matter for like casual play, so don't even worry about it. The main thing is that the higher the pickaxe power, the easier it is to break harder blocks. But the ones that you want to worry about in the early game are the gold and platinum pickaxes. Now, these are able to mine meteorite compared to other things. I guess also the tungsten pickaxe can mine meteorite, but the tungsten pickaxe can't mine demonite or crimtane ore, so it's not really that great. So setting aside more of the rare ore in order to make these better pickaxes is probably a good idea. But back to those potions. So the mining potion is made with blinkroot and antlion mandibles. Antlions are of course found in the desert, so taking them on can be a bit of a challenge early, but if you can secure a couple of mandibles, then you can make a few mining potions. Like I said, they last for 10 minutes, so that's a decent amount of time. Spelunker potions are definitely what you want when you're searching for rare items. They highlight everything in the surrounding area, and they give them a little bit of a glow. So comparing that to other things, it just makes it so that you can actually see what you might want to find. Now, Spelunker potions only last for 5 minutes, and are made with blinkroot, moon glow, which comes from the jungle, and then a gold or platinum ore. Or I think it's actually a couple, but you just set aside some ore for that, and you'll thank yourself later. Now, the other thing that you can find while mining are gemstones. Now, gemstones they're varying in use. Some are used for actually important things, like rubies are made to use to make a boss summoning item, whereas the rest of the gems are just made towards some magic weapons, robes, but most importantly, they're used to make grappling hooks, which, if you don't want to farm skeletons and piranhas for a million years to try and get a hook, you could just grab like 15 gems and turn them into a hook anyways. Some of them are worse than others, but that's depending on the rarity and the power of said gem. In the tier going from worst to best, gems go amethyst, topaz, sapphire, emerald, ruby, amber, and diamond. And the way to be able to find these gemstones is that you'll see little glowing bits inside of stone. Obviously much easier to find if you're using a spelunker potion, but also sometimes gemstones can be placed outside of blocks. This is easiest to find in the ice biome because the ice biome actually can't have the gemstones inside blocks, so they're always going to be placed. This makes the ice biome probably the easiest and best place to find gemstones, so if you're looking to get a magic robe or a staff, then that's definitely the way to do that. And amber is pretty much exclusively only found in the desert. So while you're down there trying to get some stuff for mining potions, you can also grab some amber, because amber is barely less powerful than diamond, and diamond is way rarer to find. And the amber items are not made with metal, but instead used with desert fossils, which you can get from the extractinator with the desert fossil stuff and the sturdy fossils. I'll explain that later when I talk about the extractinator, but just know that amber stuff is way better when it comes to mages early game than some of the others. But what about the treasures? The stuff that you don't have to actually mine for, that you can just pull out of a chest and get. Well, luckily, there's actually quite a few things on the surface that can definitely be useful that are found in wooden chests. The spear it's okay. I mean, it's good for knockback, and it can hit enemies multiple times, so its piercing capabilities are pretty good, but it's relatively slow and the damage is pretty lackluster. If you find one and you don't have anything else better, then it's okay, but the trident and various other things are much better than it. The blowpipe is... don't use it. I mean, it's fine, but bogging up your inventory by getting seeds and various other things is just not worth it. Just make a bow, they're way better. And besides, it's just another ammo type to bog up your inventory. Don't use it. The wooden boomerang, I've already sung its praises in my previous video, but the main reason that you even want to find one of these things is because it turns into the enchanted boomerang by just using a single fallen star, which makes it a considerable upgrade for melee players, and it gives it a ton of extra power, utility because it glows, and also it goes much farther. So definitely pick these up if you're looking to use boomerangs. The aglet gives you a decent speed boost, but is probably most known for the fact that it combines with Hermes boots and various other things to be able to make very powerful movement accessories. They're also very known for being absolutely impossible to find for some reason. While I was recording for this video, I spent around 9 hours playing the game to get footage. And you know how many aglets I found? None. I didn't find a single one. I had to make a specifically separate world to try and find them, and then I got 3. That's stupid. Why are these things so rare? I mean, there's multiple things that I literally couldn't find while recording for this video that I'll talk about, but they shouldn't be that rare. I think just RNG's mad at me for playing the game. Another item that you can find in wooden chest is the umbrella, which acts like a short sword weapon, but mainly you use it for the utility of being able to fall slowly, which prevents fall damage from happening. Now, switching over to the umbrella is kind of tedious, and I mean, just don't fall long periods of time. Using a grappling hook can easily pull you away from things, which prevents fall damage, or later on when you're able to get to a floating island, getting a lucky horseshoe will just prevent it altogether. But just be more careful and you don't have to worry about it. The climbing claws are actually identical to the shoe spikes that we'll talk about later, but together they make the tiger climbing gear, which is very useful for moving around if you don't want to use a grappling hook. Now, I mean, the real reason that you're using these is because they can turn into a very powerful accessory later that allows dodging, but I mean, sliding down walls is only so useful. It's basically an option to move around that doesn't require using a grappling hook, but I mean, why wouldn't you use a grappling hook? It's way better. The Wand of Sparking is awesome and is definitely better than almost every early magic weapon combined besides like the diamond and amber staffs. Not only does it inflict on fire, which is one of the earliest ways that a player can get a debuff in the game, but also it uses literally like no mana, which means you can spam this thing like crazy. It also upgrades to the Wand of Frosting, which increases the debuff potential because it gives Frostburn, which is slightly more powerful, and also is pretty good because it's not actually resisted by like any enemies in the game. So it's definitely an option for early game mage players to pick up, and honestly just nice if you want to stack debuffs on enemies. The radar is just an accessory item. It shows you enemies around you. It's not that useful, but if you get a good modifier on it, then you can slot it on and take benefit of that, but besides that, it's not really that important. And the step stool is pretty much the same thing, except it's even more useless. Moving on. Now, while you're down in said caves, what else do you want to be looking for besides ore and treasure? Well, obviously heart crystals are going to be the main appeal. Every time you break one of these, you get a heart crystal life crystal. These are not the same thing. That boosts your health by 20. You start out with 100 HP, and that goes all the way up to 400. So, you want to get to smashing those crystals. Now, once you get to 200 HP, it's kind of the prerequisite for some bosses to spawn, but there's some other stuff that ties into that, so once you get to 200, don't feel too scared to be able to just keep going all the way up to 400. There's other ways to prevent bosses from accidentally spawning. But, even if you have max HP, make sure to pick up any that you can find because they can be used to make heart lamps, which are extra good when putting into arenas for extra health regeneration. But, if you're struggling to find heart crystals, then definitely try and find a mushroom biome. These places not only have a pretty dense population of heart crystals, but also have a high chance for statues and chests, which means that they're basically your go-to place to get a bunch of good treasure, and the enemies aren't that much more difficult to fight. Plus, glowing mushrooms allow you to make better healing potions, which are always nice, and also you have a potential to get a relatively good weapon out of the spore bats, but getting a shroomerang is a pain. It took me forever to get one, but I think it's worth it because the upgrade path for these boomerangs I think is pretty good, but that depends on if you want to actually farm for it or not. You definitely don't have to. Now, besides the normal gold and the wooden chests, there's also a chance to find water chests in most of these biomes. Now, water chests allow you to get the trident, which is just a better spear. Same things apply. It's got good knockback. It can hit enemies multiple times. That's pretty much it. It's kind of boring. The flipper, which allows you to swim in water, so you don't just sink like a bunch of rocks. What you do is you just use the jump button, and you can just swim all the way to the top. Is it useful? I guess if you're hanging on water a lot. But in all honesty, once again, you get it. It has a good modifier. You put it on, you get some free damage or defense or whatever. That's pretty much why you would take this thing. And also water walking boots, which are also a pain in the butt to get. But they're also required in making some super powerful movement accessories later on. And they're also just useful, especially because their upgrade into the lava waders allows you to walk on top of lava and also prevent damage from lava for 7 seconds, which later on when you're in the underworld seems pretty useful considering there's lava everywhere. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows down in these caves because there's a lot of things that definitely want to kill you. Now, Usually, the enemies aren't too terrible. Bats are annoying, there's some skeletons and various other things, but the real kicker are the traps. Now, your standard dart trap is still dangerous. It shoots out a dart when you step on a pressure plate, and that dart deals poison damage and contact damage. Now, the poison isn't super bad, but the higher difficulties you get, the higher the damage it deals. And also the fact that the debuff lasts way, way longer. But if you ever accidentally trigger one, just jump. You'll usually clear it unless it's like directly next to you. But word of advice, if you see one of these, just break the pressure plate, then it literally can't be activated, or just break both the trap and the pressure plate. They actually sell for a decent amount of money, so if you're struggling with that, you can just pick these up and use them for that. More dangerous are the boulder traps. These guys will drop down a boulder once you step on the switch, which will plummet down and probably almost kill you if you don't have any defense. These things deal an obscene amount of damage, and once they land, they pick a direction, either left or right, and start rolling directly in that direction. Essentially, if you get one of these and you trip it, move to the side, jump, and just try and get out of the way. If you have a grappling hook, grapple away from it and just to a higher ground so it doesn't roll directly at you. Or what you can do is you can block the path that it's going to fall by placing blocks above it, but that would require you to actually notice the trap beforehand. So if you just see it, just go over to the boulder, break it with your pickaxe, and make sure that, well, it's not actually going to roll at you, because if you hit it and there's a path towards you, it will roll at you. So make sure that it's blocked off before you activate it. Another trap that I feel is more rare, but for some reason I found an obscene amount of them, are dead man's chests. So if you see a gold chest that's surrounded by, like, way too many traps, it's a dead man's chest. If you open up the chest, it sends out a signal and will activate every single trap in the area. Obviously, if you just hide underneath it, it's not too bad, but there's also explosives down there that will be activated along with it. The strategy is just mine out the bottom, get rid of all the explosives, which there's usually 3, and then activate the chest while you're underneath it by opening it. It just has normal gold chest loot, but sometimes can have the dead man's sweater in it, which is just a vanity item, but it shows that you didn't die when opening it. There's also explosive traps, which just, you step on a pressure plate, the explosives detonate, and you just die. These things are so hard to notice without a danger sense potion, so if it happens to you, then I'm sorry. Unless you have a danger sense, you're probably never going to see it coming. But that's most of the traps you're going to be seeing, so let's move on to something a bit nicer to find. We're talking about gold chests. These guys are usually found in underground houses, but can also be just found strewn about. These things have probably the most desirable loot pool in the entire game at the start because of the options that it has. Starting off is the regeneration band, or band of regeneration, and however it says. That gives you just a flat 1 HP per second health regeneration, which, when you don't have any, is infinitely more than what you have. They also are used to make a couple accessories later on, so if you get multiple, it's nice to just hold on to them. The magic mirror is always nice. It allows you to skip using recall potions, and whenever you want to go directly back to your spawn point, you just pull it out of your inventory and use it. It's super simple, but also super effective, and no longer requires you to just either climb out of a cave or die. The cloud in the bottle is amazing, giving you a second jump, which negates fall damage if you're directly going to take it and you just jump instead, and also is made into a bunch of movement accessories that add on to its effect. It's super good, and if you find one early, then you're always happy. Tying into movement is the Hermes boots, which allow you to move faster while moving in the same direction to a certain speed. These are tied in with a bunch of other accessories like the aglet to make a ton of movement options, which culminate in the Terra Spark boots, which are probably the best movement accessory in the game, and actually you can get it before going into hard mode, but it requires a lot of praying to RNG to actually get you the items that you want, but it is an option. So if you want to move fast and quick, then go for it. The mace is pretty good. I'd say that if you get one, it's definitely worth using if you're a melee player, because the flail type weapons are extra good at enemies that are long, so they're perfect for worms, and also their knockback potential is very good when throwing. But the main appeal of these things is events. If you get a goblin army and have a ton of enemies in one spot, just take a mace and throw it, and you will see every enemy in front of your path get demolished by it. They can also be upgraded with torches to turn into a flaming mace. I don't think it actually increases the damage, but it does add the on fire debuff, which just makes it do more damage inherently. Plus, it gives it a little light, so it has some utility with that. Definitely a worthwhile item to use. The shoe spikes are just like the climbing claws. They do the exact same thing where you can jump off of walls with them. But if you take both accessories and use a Goblin Tinkerer to combine them, you get a much better accessory that allows you to just stick to walls and jump off of them with ease. But that's a whole different thing. So if you want to do that and they seem appealing, take them. If not, don't. Speaking of don't take, we have the flare gun. This is an item of all time. If you want to light up caves from a distance and don't want to use glow sticks for some reason, then you can use the flare gun. If you want to use it for combat, don't. just don't do that. It's a meme weapon. It's not very good. I'd recommend selling it. It gets you money, which is infinitely more useful than the flare gun. That's about it. The Extractinator can be found in gold chests that are in... I know for sure they're in the ice biome, but I don't know if they can be found in the desert as well. I think they can. So the Extractinator is just gambling, pretty much. If you take silt blocks, slush blocks, or fossils, and you click over the Extractinator with them, you will get a variety of items, from coins to ores to even a pet. But essentially, it's just holding down stuff and getting some little rewards. It is the only way out of, well, it is one of few ways, I guess, to get the alternate ores if you don't have them in your world. But in all honesty, it's such a slow and tedious process, I would not recommend doing this. The main appeal of it is using desert fossils to get sturdy fossils, which are used to make some items from the desert. But besides that, it's not particularly useful. But if you find one and you're up for some grinding, then I guess you can use it if you want. But moving on from the standard biome, let's head over to the ice biome, which has actually some pretty good items in it, and also one that I straight up couldn't find no matter how I tried, and I'm sad about it. I'm sad. But not the ice boomerang. I did find the ice boomerang, and it's very good. It inflicts the same debuff as the Wand of Frosting, which is Frostburn, which once again is resisted by very few enemies, and also the ice boomerang is basically just a better enchanted boomerang. It's super good. It doesn't deal as much damage as the Shroomerang, but I think it's just better because of the debuff. So it's definitely probably the best early boomerang that you can get if you're not willing to go over to the jungle or to grind to get the Trimerang. So if you're looking for that style of gameplay, then I definitely think taking the Ice Boomerang is a good idea. The Ice Blade is good, and I can't find one to save my life. It's one of the few melee weapon swords that I can actually use a projectile early in the game, and it lights up a significant portion of the screen. So using this thing actually makes it fairly easy to not use torches early game and just see stuff while swinging your weapon. It's just a really good option early in the game, and especially because it's probably a lot easier to get an Ice Blade than it is to get an enchanted sword. I guess I'll mention the enchanted sword here. It's a rare item. You can find little shrines underground that you can find in it, but honestly, the easiest way to find it is actually fishing. But I don't want to talk about fishing. Well, I do, and I don't. I'll talk about it later. Let's get back to the ice biome now with the ice skates. Ice skates just make it so that you don't slip and slide on ice blocks. They're also used to make a bunch of movement accessories, including in the Terra Spark boots. So if you find them, definitely keep them if you want to make those. The snowball cannon is... it's okay. I mean, most of the guns in early game are much better than it, but if you're in the ice biome and you get one, you might as well make a bunch of snowballs and just use it if you're looking for a ranged weapon. It's not crazy good, but it's definitely usable. So, if you don't want to go to the corruption right away to get a gun, then this is probably your best option besides the boomstick from the jungle. And I'd say the ice biome's a little easier to traverse than the jungle is. The blizzard in a bottle is just a strictly better cloud in a bottle. It gives you a little bit of a better jump, but essentially it's just the same item. It gives you a double jump, and the flurry boots, which are also in the ice biome, are just the Hermes boots. But these ones are actually the same, but because there's less items in the ice biome loot pool, it's actually easier to get flurry boots than Hermes boots. So, it's definitely a better option, but the desert is the best place if you're looking to actually get a boot option for your movement. And also there's the ice mirror. The ice mirror is just a magic mirror, but it's in the ice biome. Good. Now, here we have a couple of weapons, and a weapon and a armor item that you can craft while in the ice biome. If you find the Flinx enemies, make sure to kill them, because if you're playing as a summoner, they are your probably easiest source of damage in the early game. The Flinx staff is pretty good. The Flinxes are actually very mobile and can deal with enemies of all varieties fairly decently. And the Flinx coat is probably the earliest summoner item you can actually get to boost your minion slots. And it gives a little bit of a defense too. So what I would do is just put on the coat and then just add whatever other armor that you want until you can get better stuff later. But definitely the best idea for summoners to go to the ice biome if you want to actually do anything. Next up is the desert. Desert has lots and lots and lots of bugs. I mean, the jungle almost has more bugs, but the desert has different bugs. Essentially, dealing with these guys is just hope you have enough knockback to stop them from swarming you, and dealing with the cacti so that they don't roll and kill you as well. It's a very dangerous area, but for mining potions, it's definitely worth it to come down here, and some of the items that you can get are super good as well. Now, if you're in the top 3/7 of the desert, like if you cut the entire world from top to bottom into 7 slices, the first 3 are where the chisel, the boots, and the flute and the conch. I thought there were 3 items, there are 4, that's why that sounded so weird. The chisel is awesome. It gives you 25% mining speed for free, almost, because you're probably going to have an empty inventory slot for your accessories, so just slot it over there and boom, you're mining 25% faster. The boots are the Dune Rider boots. I forgot what name they were, and I didn't put that in my notes. But they're probably the easiest to get boots in the game, because the top 3/7 of the desert only have 4 items in the loot pool, which means it's a 1 out of 4 chance to get, rather than like a 1 out of like 7 or a 1 out of 6 for the other biome. So it's definitely the way to go if you're looking for a boots accessory and you still haven't gotten one. The Snake Charmer's flute, it spawns ropes. If you don't have a grappling hook by now, I guess it's good, but you don't really need it. And the Magic Conch allows you to teleport to each ocean, if you so desire. If you have something located at the ocean, then take one. It's just free teleportation. Why not? Saves you time. In the bottom 4/7 of the dungeon, the desert, You can get the Storm Spear, the Thunder Zapper, and the Bast statue. The Storm Spear is just a souped up trident or spear. It's a little bit better, but these weapons aren't particularly useful besides their knockback potential, which is, I guess, good in the desert, but you have to go to the desert to get the thing. The Thunder Zapper is a pretty decent magic weapon. It's pretty on par with some of the magic staffs early game, but the problem is it doesn't pierce, so it's not going to be anything too crazy, but the damage is still okay. And the Bast statue, which gives 5 defense as a placed object if it's nearby. You can also find these just actually in these desert cabins, but I was only able to find one that was in a chest. But if you're making a boss arena, make sure to place them down. It's just free defense, and who doesn't like that? For the craftable items from the desert, once again we're going to be talking about the Extractinator. So taking the desert fossils, putting them through the Extractinator gets you sturdy fossils. You can also get sturdy fossils from defeating the worms that spawn in the desert, but it's way easier to just use the Extractinator. These are used to make the fossil armor, which is a good option for early rangers, and the amber staff and robe. Well, actually I don't remember if the amber robe needs fossils, but the staff does. Both of these are basically on par with their diamond counterparts. I think the diamond robe might be slightly better, but the amber staff is almost identical to the ruby staff, which means this is probably your easiest option if you're going for magic items in the early game. So if you're looking for that, then go to the desert. Or if you're a ranger too. Next up is the bee-infested, poison-infested, fun time that is the jungle. The jungle holds very good items, especially for mage, but also just has a lot of options for pretty much every class. So once you get geared up a decent amount, you get some health crystals and a decent weapon or two. I think taking on the jungle is definitely a good way to cap off kind of this early game experience for most players. Now, if you're looking for items, then the jungle holds them in usually either 2 places: jungle shrines, which are these little boxes with a torch, or at these big, like, living style trees that also hold items as well. Now, what are the items that have in the chests? Well, I'm happy you asked, because here's the answer. So the Anklet of the Wind is the counterpart to the Aglet. Oh, well, not the counterpart, the additive to the Aglet, because both of these included to make the lightning boots from the Spectre boots. Essentially, it's just another movement option. It's used to make the Terraspark boots. It's one of like the 5 things now that I've mentioned make those, so you can tell that there's a lot of stuff that you need to make them. Next up is the Feral Claws, which are extremely good for melee, not only because they're required to make like one of the best melee accessories in the game, but also just because it's free melee speed. It's also actually good for summoners as well, because whips get the attack speed boost. So it's actually worth it to usually, if you're using whips as a summoner, to use melee-esque things, because you're still technically hitting stuff. So if you get some melee speed, or if you get some buffs, it's actually pretty worth it. Next up is the Staff of Regrowth, which, I mean, it's classified as a weapon, but the main appeal of it is that when you hit a herb, like a Moonglow or a Blinkroot or various other things, you have a higher chance to get more seeds, and you have a decent chance to get more herbs from just hitting the one. This makes it so that if you're actually farming stuff in planter boxes or something like that, you get way more than you normally would, which means you have to farm much less. So it saves you time. But if you're like me and you just run around and just smack stuff, then it's still useful, especially if you don't have a lot of something. Like sometimes I run out of water leaf or fire blossom, then it's a little easier to just use the Staff of Regrowth on anything you find, because it's just free more stuff. The fiberglass rod is just a better fishing rod. It's also one of the few items I literally couldn't find when I was playing. But, I mean, if you don't find one, the reinforced fish is still decent. Honesty, don't cry about it if you don't get it. It doesn't really matter. Next up is the boomstick, which is good. It's the first shotgun that you can get in the game, and for close-up combat, it is exceptionally good for rangers. Pairing it with a longer range weapon like a musket or a mini shark allows you to pretty much cover all ranges of the combat that you're dealing with. But the boomstick's still pretty good because it's not like it's crazy spread, so it still can be used decently at range if the enemy's at medium. But if they're super far away, I would not recommend using it. Your damage is going to fall off like crazy. Now, similar to the bass statues that can be placed in the desert cabins, in the jungle you can also find grindstones. These give melee weapons a bit of a damage penetration. It just makes you so that you deal more damage because it takes off some of the enemy's armor. So, if you find one, it's great. I actually don't think these work for anything but melee weapons, so I don't think that whips get a benefit from these, unfortunately. So, it's so much for the whole buffing summon weapons with melee. Now, the jungle has actually quite a few craftable things that range pretty much for every single class. I guess every class but ranger, but the ranger gets the boomstick, so the ranger can be happy. The jungle armor is exceptional for mages. It's honestly pretty good to, if you're playing mage, just get some defense and some health and just rush the jungle to get enough materials to make the magic armor, because jungle armor allows you to deal way more damage. And the defense is honestly insanely good. It basically will take you all the way to the end of pre-hard mode if you get it. So it's definitely worth it in every playthrough of Mage to just go for the jungle armor. The Amazon is probably the first yo-yo in the game that I would actually recommend using. It's decent. I don't think it deals poison like pretty much everything else in the jungle, but it deals a decent amount of damage where I can actually say that you probably could use it if you want to, but yo-yos without all of the awesome accessories that tie them make them just not very good to use in early game, but if you want to use it, it's not the worst option. The Blade of Grass is awesome. It's a much bigger broadsword than a lot of weapons that you've had up to this point, and it's one of the few weapons in pre-hard mode that has a projectile. It's not an insanely good projectile, but because of the fact that it deals poison damage, it allows you to actually debuff a lot of enemies that you think you might not be able to reach. It's definitely a great option, and also the fact that it's a material in the Night's Edge, which is, at least in my opinion, probably the strongest pre-hard mode weapon in the game. So if you're going melee and you want strong swords, the Blade of Grass is probably the best you're going to get before you fight any bosses. The Ivy Whip is, I don't know if it's the best hook in the game, like pre-hard mode, but it's definitely up there. It's very good, and easily can probably replace any gem hooks that you have, except maybe like a diamond hook, but it has multiple appendages, so it's probably better anyways. So, if you want a good hook, just go to the jungle. The Snapthorn is it's the second whip that you can get in the game, because you can buy the leather whip from the zoologist if she spawns, but the Snapthorn is just way better. And, in all honesty, if you're not gearing for NPCs, you're probably going to get the Snapthorn first, in all honesty. It deals poison damage when hitting enemies, and also is just a whip. It's good for summoners. Makes your summons hit the thing that you're hitting. It's good. Use it. And also, it wouldn't be a biome without another boomerang to talk about. It's the Thorn Chakram. These things also inflict poison, and are actually relatively quick. They deal a bit more damage than some of the other boomerangs in early game, but it also has the added benefit that it bounces when you throw it. So you can actually ricochet it off of surfaces to hit enemies, when normally you would just go in a straight line and it would bounce right back to you. So it has some applications, but also it can be kind of a pain because most boomerangs will just go through stuff if you're trying to throw it. This will just straight up bounce back. So in some cases, in a really cluttered area, it can actually be worse. But if you want it, it's just another boomerang option. There's so many at this point, so you could pick whatever you want. Now that you're relatively geared up, why don't we actually take on some of the evil areas of the game? I don't know why it's evil. Evil. First off is the corruption, because that's the thing that I picked for my normal world, so I want to talk about it first because I think it's better. The corruption. It's got a lot of eaters which fly around and a lot of worms that dig around. But it's not that bad. I mean, most of the enemies are pretty easy to deal with compared to the Crimson, so traversing it's not too terrible. The first time that you go down to the chasms and find yourself a shadow orb, if you use some bombs to break down, since you won't be able to mine the shadow stone, you can get yourself a musket. Now, the guns in pre-hard mode that drop from the orbs are always guaranteed on the first one. So you don't have to worry about like not getting one, because you will every time. The musket is just good. It's the first gun that you're probably going to get unless you go for the boomstick, and it just does way too much damage in all honesty. Like, this thing is crazy. It doesn't fire extremely slow like you'd think. This thing is just a powerhouse. And obviously you need a gun and bullets in order to get the arms dealer to spawn. So if you want to get him, which allows you to buy the mini shark and bullets and vice versa, you might as well just break one of these, grab the musket, and then have it in your inventory so you can move in. So it's definitely a good option to just grab right away if you're willing to brave the dangers. Next up is the Ball of Hurt. It's another flail. This one is decent. I'd say that it's probably the most widely used because you can get it so early. Yes, there are better flails in the early game, but in all honesty, it's probably the one that's used for more things because of the way that it's placed. It beats out pretty much every other except for like the Sun Fury, which is like the last one you get. And the Blue Moon exists, but you know, it's fine. I don't. But you lose out in the on fire debuff of the flaming mace, but instead get a way higher damage stat. And when it comes to maces, you just really want to throw them and just demolish a bunch of enemies, which this thing does very, very well. Speaking of beating a lot of enemies at once, the Vile Thorn is a magic weapon that infinitely pierces. So if you're going against worm bosses, like, well, I meant to say worm enemies, but I guess worm bosses also work. But anything that's large, like has a large hitbox, these things are exceptional at hitting because they hit every single segment and hit multiple times. So the Vile Thorn is definitely good at not only that, but also stun locking enemies because they hit so many times that the knockback just kind of keeps them in place. So it's also a good utility item for that. The Band of Star Power is... it's pretty much almost a requirement for mages, so I would recommend if you're going mage to always pick Corruption Worlds, because the Band of Star Power on its own isn't like super crazy, but its upgrades are awesome and allow you to essentially forego magic potions entirely, because why need to drink a mana potion when I could just get my mana for almost free? So it's definitely a great option. And last but not least, the Shadow Orb. Well, not the one you broke, but the one that you get for breaking it. It's definitely the better out of the two light pets at the start of the game because it doesn't flop around on the ground and suck like the Crimson Heart does, but it's not exceptional, but it's definitely better than not having one. Speaking of the Crimson, I don't play it all that often because I'm a corruption head, but, you know, the Crimson is fine. It's definitely better for certain classes. I would say that Between the two, if you want to go for melee or ranger, I'd say Jax, probably Crimson. But if you're going for mage and summoner, I'd say probably corruption. But that's just my opinion. I don't know. You can do whichever you want. Now, the Crimson, the enemies are very difficult to deal knockback to. They're actually extremely tough when it comes to that. So, actually, spears get a pretty good power buff when it comes to the Crimson because you can stun lock enemies a lot easier. And also the fact that there's a specific spear that you can get dropped from the Crimson Hearts means that it's just a good idea to bring. But skipping over that, we want to talk about the gun first, of course, because the gun is the best part. The Undertaker is a revolver that does a bit less damage than the musket, but I believe fires a bit faster. So, depending on your world, you still have a pretty solid gun regardless, and once again, your main appeal is probably going to be to grabbing this thing and then waiting for the arms dealer to show up so that you can get your buying spree out of the way. The Rotted Fork is said spear that I was going to talk about. This thing's probably... I mean, spears are weird. They're not crazy good, but specifically in the Crimson they're good, so I think holding on to it if you want to use it is fine. It's not crazy good, but it's whatever. The Crimson Rod is weird. It's an, like, other magic weapon, but it's more of a utility item. It's a City You Forget, where you place it down, it deals a little extra damage to anything that goes under it, and that's pretty much it, and you reapply when it goes away. It's not exceptional, but if you get one, you can find ways to make it work. The Panic Necklace allows you to essentially just move much, much faster when you're in dangerous situations. It's exceptionally good against certain bosses because it allows you to get way more movement out of what you already have. So, in those situations, it's pretty decent. But I wouldn't bend over backwards to try and get one because it's not like it's the craziest thing in the game. But if you get one, once again, there's ways to make it work. And I already talked about how I don't really like the Crimson Heart Light Pet because it just flops around and isn't great. But here it is anyways. To take a little bit of a break because I almost ran out of air. I did all those parts in one go, so I needed to take a little bit of a break. Anyways, up next is Floating Islands. Now, dear viewer, you're probably wondering, well, how am I supposed to actually get and find said floating islands? Well, lucky for you, gravitation potions exist. Now, these things are a bit of a pain to actually make because Fire Blossom is only found in the underworld, so you're just kind of hoping that you can find some in pots and various other things like chests. But if you don't find any, then there is another option. You could just, build into the sky and hope you can find them. But also, if you find these little tiny water puddles, like very small to the point where they seem kind of out of place, there's actually a pretty high chance that there's a floating island directly above them. So how this works is that during world generation, sometimes some of the water overlaps and it'll just come to the ground. So that's actually why there's a decent chance that if you find these, there is a floating island above them. It's just an option that, if you don't know where to look, it's probably your closest to guaranteed way to find them, but it's not like it's wholly guaranteed. But you're probably wondering, well, why are we actually going to these floating islands? Like, what's the point? Well, there's actually quite a few great things that you want to be looking for. First is, of course, the Golden Horseshoe, Lucky Horseshoe. Well, it is gold, but you know what I mean. This thing negates fall damage, which is extremely good when it's the only way to do that in the early game besides getting another item from floating islands, so... And the fact that it makes it so that you literally don't have to worry about fall damage at all. And also the fact that it combines with another item that you can find in floating islands and with the Claw in the Bottle, means that you can actually have all of these awesome effects in one. So it's very good. The Star Fury is a weapon that honestly is more powerful in its utility than it is as a weapon, which says a lot because this thing deals a absurd amount of damage. So the Star Fury, when you swing, wherever your cursor is, it'll drop a star projectile. So this thing does actually more damage than the weapon does. I think it's about 50% more, which means that if this thing crits, it deals like way too much damage. But the best thing is, wherever you click is where the star goes, which means if you're underground, you can actually click around the screen, and the star will fall from the top of the screen to wherever you're clicking. So, if you don't have any way to be able to see stuff like a Spelunker potion and whatnot, this is actually a pretty good way to find items that you're looking for by not actually having to go anywhere. You could just dig down and click around, and hopefully you can see whatever you're looking for. So, it's a great option. Just be careful if you're in somewhere like the underground jungle, because this will accidentally activate Queen Bee. So, just be wary when using it in those areas. The shiny red balloon is next, and this is one of those things that I said was going to combine with the horseshoe and the cloud in a balloon. Cloud in a bottle. Spoilers! The shiny red balloon allows you to just jump higher. It's, by itself, not crazy, but the fact that, jump height is super important in the early game because it's a mobility option, it's just inherently good. And obviously, like I said, that the combination of these items just makes it way better. And last is the fledgling wings. These things are actually the only wings that you can find pre-hard mode, and because of that, they're not very good. I think in almost every case, just use like Spectre Boots and something else. Just don't use the fledgling wings. The only thing that's nice is that if you get fledgling wings, you don't need fall damage prevention, because wings give you inherent fall damage prevention. So if that's what you're worried about and you find wings, you can use them, but in all honesty, they're not really that great. But if you want to use them, you can, but if not, don't. Well, that's all the treasure-esque things that I wanted to talk about, but there's actually 2 events that I want to give special mention, because before your first boss, it is pretty possible that you will have one of these things happen. First up is the Goblin army. So after you break a Shadow Orb or a Crimson Heart, and it's daytime, and you have over 200 HP, there's a chance, I don't know the exact chance, but essentially every day there will be a chance rolled, and then at the start of that day, there's a chance for a Goblin army to spawn. Now, the Goblin army itself isn't super difficult to beat, and there's not a lot of great items to get from it specifically, until hard mode at least, but the main appeal of the Goblin army is you beat it, and it unlocks the Goblin Tinkerer, who is probably single-handedly the most important NPC in the game, because not only does he allow you to reforge your items to get better modifiers to them, but also he allows you to combine your accessories, which I've mentioned a bit in this video, but you actually can't do it until you do this. So it's a bit of a power spike, because all these accessories that you've been getting can now be combined into other ones, which saves you not only inventory slots, but also just makes them better. Also, he has the rocket boots, which include a upgrade path for the Hermes boots, which give you Spectre boots, which allow you not only to run super fast, but also fly for a limited time. This combined, of course, with the double jump from the Cloud and Balloon, makes you way more mobile than you were before. So, honestly, it's one of the best power spikes in the game, so smashing some orbs and then getting 200 HP just to get a Goblin army is a great way to start feeling a lot more powerful at the start of the game. And last but not least is the Bloodmoon. Now, Bloodmoons essentially increase spawn rates, make things scary, and spawn new enemies. I mean, there's not a crazy amount of stuff base Bloodmoon that you can get, but it's not the actual Bloodmoon that I'm worried about. I mean, the best things that you can get from the actual, new Bloodmoon enemies, like the Blood Zombies and Dripplers, is the Shark Tooth necklace, So this thing just gives you a 5 armor pen for free on everything, which is very good. It's especially good for things that have low damage inherently. So, especially good with, guns that fire quickly, like the mini shark, or, things that just aren't doing a ton of damage. The shark tooth necklace gets a ton of value out of. And the other item that you want to look out for in a Bloodmoon from normal enemies is the Bloody Tear, which is a rare drop that just allows you to summon a Bloodmoon whenever you want, which, for an event that's completely RNG, being able to spawn it whenever you want is really nice. But next up is the items that you get from fishing. Yeah, I didn't want to talk about fishing, but then I realized Bloodmoon fishing's actually pretty good early game, and it's just a good idea to do it because it's good. I'm just gonna say it's good. So, what did I actually use to fish? Well, all I did was made the reinforced rods, then get the fiberglass rod from the jungle, and I just made some enchanted night crawlers, which is just, you get some worms, like from a can or from background items, which you need to get a bug net for if you end up doing that, but I didn't because I just saved all my can worms, so. But then you take them, you take a fallen star, you smash them together, and you get an enchanted nightcrawler, which is slightly better. So you take these two things and you fish in some water. So during a Bloodmoon, there's I believe a 1 in 6 chance that every time you try to reel in something, it'll give you an enemy. So there's 2 enemies in particular, the zombie merman and the, the eyeball fish thing. I don't have its name up, but that's what it is. But these 2 enemies both actually drop the same thing, so at least you don't have to worry about, getting one or the other. So you just want them to get anyways. But to make things easier while fishing, especially in a Bloodmoon, you want to use sonar and fishing potions. So sonar potions are waterleaf and coral. Waterleaf is found in the desert, and coral is usually found underwater in the ocean. Sonar potions allow you to see what you're going to catch above your bobber before you reel it in, which means that instead of wasting a bunch of time catching a bunch of stuff that you don't want, you can just sit there and wait till it pops up with an enemy and then reel it in then, which saves you bait and saves you bait. Fishing potions just give you more fishing power, which means you'll catch things relatively more often. It's complicated. Which those require waterleaf and crispy honey blocks, which are why I don't know why they're in fishing potions, but whatever. To make them, you get some honey blocks that spawn usually around hives in the jungle, and you take them to a furnace and you make them crispy. That's it. So using these 2, you throw your bobber into the water and you reel it in when it says an enemy. You kill the enemy. And, what are you actually trying to get here? What's the point here? Well, there's 3 items that you're wanting to get. First is the Chum Caster, which is just a better fishing rod in general, but during a Bloodmoon, it makes it much, much more likely that you're going to reel in enemies, which, in all honesty, when it comes to fishing casually, fishing during a Bloodmoon is honestly one of the very few times you'll actually want to do it, because the enemies drop actually pretty decent stuff. So this just makes that way easier, especially later on in hard mode. So it's worth it just to get it now. And actually, quick mention of another chum item. You can get chum buckets from some of these items, or some of these enemies, which if you throw it into water, it'll give you a bit of a buff to your fishing power. So just an extra thing to tag on to. If you get them, that's great. If you don't, whatever. But, moving on. The Blood Rain bow is not great. It fires arrows from the sky, which, it's fine, but they're very inaccurate. It's not super fast, and it honestly doesn't deal that great of damage either. Against a big enemy, like if you were fighting maybe the Eater of Worlds on the surface or something like that, then maybe it'd be okay. But in all honesty, just use something else. It's not really great. But the main reason, like, why are we even doing this, is the Vampire Frog Staff. It's just probably the most reliable summon weapon for the early game pre-boss in general. The Flink Staff is great, and the Flink Staff is probably better for more airborne enemies, but for anything on the ground, which is a lot of things, the Vampire Frog Staff will tear through them like crazy. It's exceptionally good, and until you get a decent while into boss progression, you won't get a better summon weapon. So if you're a summoner, then make sure that if there's a Bloodmoon, you got some stuff to set up for fishing, because that's definitely the way you want to go. And with that, that is everything I can think of when it comes to pre-boss to progression. I'm probably missing some stuff. Well, I know I'm missing some stuff, but I tried to get everything that I think is important. But I mean, there's probably something I forgot, but let's not worry about that, because that's what the comments are for, and I'll explain that all later at some point anyways. But for now, and until next time when I talk about bosses, see you guys later. Have a good one, and bye-bye.